What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to break down why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely massive day for the entire stock market. So we have so many earnings dropping, not to mention the FOMC meeting. I'm going to break down how this may affect Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. I'm going to talk about what the news is saying about the markets and earnings, what the data is suggesting for Tesla, and what the technicals are looking like, what you should be watching for as I go about and talk about how tomorrow is going to play out, and some very important things to watch for. But before I break things down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, in just about 7 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, so Tesla was down 1.4% for the day, relatively weak compared to the market, but it was a little bit green in the after hours. The question is, how will Tesla move tomorrow? Will Tesla get a very nice bounce? Will Tesla crash? Well, this is going to depend heavily on the data that's dropping and all the earnings, so I'm going to break that down in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the earnings. So we have Microsoft and Google coming out right now. Microsoft is down right now, but Google is holding up quite nicely. And overall, we're still waiting for more guidance and things like that to come out. But I'm going to wait a little bit longer for the earnings call to actually end for each of them. And for now, Google's the better one of the two, and we're going to see how this reaction ends up playing out by tomorrow. For now, I don't really have enough time to go over all of these because the call is just still going on, and once again, it's going to take many more minutes, if not another hour, by the time they finish. So we're just going to wait and see how they do. This will cause a reaction tomorrow morning. Then tomorrow morning, before the market opens, we have even more earnings like AT&T and Boeing and Coca-Cola, and the list goes on for more earnings. So this is going to affect the market a little bit too during the very open. So I do expect some volatility during the first hour or so, maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour of the trading day. But then after that, okay, after maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour pass for the market for tomorrow, I expect lots of boring, choppy price action for the entire stock market, at least almost every stock out there, because this is what generally happens on these FOMC days, is the market just waits for some big data to drop. So for the first hour after earnings, expect some volatility. Then after that, expect a big slowdown and just very sideways price action, very choppy price action until we approach the rate hike decision. When is the decision coming out? At 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, we have the rate hike decision. So first, the decision comes out before the press conference. You have to remember that. What does this mean? This means that all the headlines are going to be saying that the Fed is making this decision. They're going to raise rates or do whatever they're going to do. And currently, there's a 99% chance, okay, 99.6% chance they give us another rate hike. They give us a 25 basis point rate hike. And there's a high probability they're going to be doing that now, looking at the current data, as unemployment is still relatively low. And the Fed is going after that sector, not to mention wage growth, in my opinion. But to add on to this, basically, don't forget lots of volatility in the morning, depending on how earnings go. Then sideways price action. Then expect a big move depending on the rate hike. The Fed is most likely going to give us a 25 basis point rate hike. The market knows this, so I don't know how the market's going to react to it in the very beginning. But then what gets serious, every move we see in the morning is going to be nothing compared to what's about to happen here at 2:30 p.m. So after the rate hike decision comes out, 30 minutes after that, we have the press conference. And Jerome Powell is going to be speaking, and the Fed is going to give us more insights on their policies. If the Fed is hinting towards raising rates again and again and again in the upcoming meetings, if the Fed remains very hawkish, if the Fed scares the entire stock market with more and more hawkish policy, this is going to cause a big rug pull in the market. So you have to be very careful. Jerome Powell also has been very hawkish the last couple of weeks when he was speaking, talking about more rate hikes, talking about how core CPI is not where the Fed wants it to be. So we have to be very careful. This is going to cause a very big move. With Jerome Powell speaking, there's no telling what he's going to be saying. This is what he looks like if you guys haven't seen him before, right? And he loves to move the markets. Whenever he opens his mouth, the entire market is going to move like crazy. You have to be ready. Why does the market move so much when he talks? Because he is the Fed chairman, and the Fed are in control of monetary policy. Through open market operations, the Fed is dictating many different things that happen to the central banks. And when they change their policies or the course of their policies, this could catch the market off guard, or this could even lead to more selling pressure based off how funds start positioning from what they say. So if the Fed continues to say we're going to raise rates more and more and more, right, the market's going to most likely sell off more. If the Fed is saying that they may pause soon, the market may hold up a lot better. The market may even get really excited with this news coming out. The market has a tendency of being very, very, very reactive, and they also price things in very quickly. So just be ready for all this volatility. Now, as far as the sectors go in earnings, let me just mention that right now there's some negative sectors coming out involving regional banks. We're starting to see more of them actually taking some hits. We actually saw the Bank of California just buy PacWest not too long ago. And this caused the market to sell off a little bit today because, once again, we're starting to see regional banks take some hits with the higher rates. This may continue moving forward. It likely will. So just be very careful with more news like this coming out for more earnings. But as far as this other stuff goes, we had some earnings coming out for Google, aka Alphabet, and they did relatively well in my opinion. They actually saw their second quarter revenue rise 7%. The cloud revenue was up 28%. They beat on EPS and revenue. We saw YouTube ads, Google Cloud, and other things up. We also saw the traffic acquisition costs go up just a little bit. But besides that, most things were quite good, beating expectations. I'm very proud of them for that. Now, for Microsoft, they beat on EPS and revenue, but we're still waiting for the conference call, not the conference call, the earnings call. Sorry about that, guys. The earnings call is still going on, and we're gonna make sure and see how it goes. I mean, at the time I'm recording this, I can't really watch it right now. I can't watch it while I'm recording this video, but they are dropping in the after hours, which is not what I was basically expecting. But I also warned you guys that you never know what's going to happen with earnings. With Google, I think they're up right now. They should be up. The last time I checked, they were up. They're actually up about 6.19%. So Google's holding up. Microsoft is slowing down. It's very mixed from the big tech earnings so far. And then for tomorrow, after all this craziness from the Fed and these earnings, don't forget after the market closes, we have Chipotle and Meta and a couple of others reporting earnings like eBay as well. But the big one's going to be Meta. Can't wait to see what Meta says. So pretty crazy day tomorrow. Huge earnings and the FOMC meeting with Powell speaking. It's going to be a wild day, so make sure you guys are ready for this. Now, to add on to all of this, when it comes to news affecting Tesla, I didn't really see anything that we didn't see yesterday that I have not reported on this channel. But Tesla's adding a new feature with a unique destination feature with the new software update. This is great news for them because it makes things a lot more easy for their users, and this helps them to actually estimate things more accurately, like arrival time, battery upon arrival, photo of the location, just things like this, which would be very, very helpful for their consumers. Now, for Tesla, from a technical standpoint, volume is still relatively high, but a little bit weaker compared to yesterday. Tesla is not selling on as high of volume as what we saw yesterday, so that's a decent sign. But it is still high volume compared to before being over 100 million. So there is still some selling pressure for Tesla. I didn't really see anything that negative, that bad for it, besides getting a downgrade from UBS. The price price ratio is starting to drop a little bit, so it is looking a little bit weaker again. But UBS is saying that they basically downgraded Tesla from a buy to neutral. That did play a role in why Tesla sold off. It's just that we didn't get the reaction to this quite quickly enough because this data came out yesterday. This was reported yesterday, I mean. And the thing about this is Tesla got some very bullish news with the new potential EV to come out that's worth $24,000, working on it in India. Uh, the reason why that made up the headlines was why Tesla ended up pumping. But now that that's out of the way, I think more investors were focusing on UBS and other factors like that. And that's part of why Tesla sold off. Now, none of this data really matters for tomorrow because the biggest thing is going to be the FOMC meeting. And then on top of that, the short interest on Tesla is starting to go up just a tiny bit. It's on a slight uptrend. As shorts pile in, this is playing a role in why Tesla's underperforming just a bit. Now, as far as their listings go, we're actually seeing the Model X stabilizing and the other models are starting to drop a little bit. This is because we saw more potential price cuts for some of the models and more tax incentives that came out very recently. But besides that, now let's talk about the technicals. What do I see happening to the market? Microsoft is selling off, right? But Google is going to the upside. So this is very mixed for the market. The market may get a mixed reaction in the morning. But Microsoft is looking a little bit more aggressive, so it may slow the market down tomorrow morning just a little bit. But then we're going to see a reaction depending on the earnings coming out. So in the morning, okay, it doesn't really matter that much. We may see some volatility, okay? Then we're going to see sideways price action. Then the rate hike decision is going to lead to more volatility. Then Jerome Powell is going to cause the bigger moves at the end of the day. So here's the thing. I'm going to end this by just talking about Jerome Powell because that's going to be the most significant thing tomorrow. If Powell pumps the markets ultimately, we're going to see SPY go all the way up to 458 plus. If Powell rug pulls the markets tomorrow, and the odds do favor that, given his history, his track record from the last couple of weeks, we're going to likely see SPY come all the way down to 450 442 or lower, all the way down to like 450 is possible if Powell gives us a rug pull, and the odds favor that based off what he was saying before. Am I promising it though? Not necessarily. I'm simply saying that the odds favor that based off what I saw historically. For Tesla, if we get a pump thanks to Powell, okay, by the end of the day, if Tesla pumps thanks to Powell, it could go all the way up to the 270s, retest 274. If Powell gives us a rug pull, we're going to see Tesla come all the way down to at least 255 or so, if not lower, and we could see a big rug pull in the whole market. The technicals on Tesla are looking relatively weak, so it does look more favorable that we see some downside, not to mention how Powell's track record has been. But just to be safe, always try to be open-minded and be prepared for anything, because you never know what's going to happen with Jerome Powell speaking. For Aapl, if we get Powell pump the markets, we're going to see Aapl break 194. If we're bearish tomorrow, then we're going to see this break below 192 and potentially retest 191 to 190, which would slow the whole market down. So now I'm going to continue by saying if we're bullish and if we're bearish. If I say if we're bullish, I'm referring to Powell pumping the markets. If I say if we're bearish, I'm referring to Powell causing the market to rug pull. If we are bullish tomorrow, thanks to Powell, we're going to see the QQQ go all the way up to 380 plus. If that breaks, if it breaks 380.5, we could see 382. If Powell gives us the rug pull for bearish, we're going to be watching 375 or lower, and I do think the odds favor that, but just to be safe, always be open-minded once again. For Nvda, it's a great company, has a really nice setup with the potential inverse head and shoulders formation, but technicals are only half of the picture. There's a possibility it just dips a little bit, then tries to bounce and outperform the markets, but there's no guarantee because it depends on Powell. If we're bearish, we're going to see this thing retest about 444, if not 440. If we're bullish, we're going to be watching this thing go all the way up to about 4. I would say very close to like 465 to 470 after that. All depends on tomorrow. Microsoft is trying to sell off harder, so we could see the market slow down in the morning tomorrow, trade sideways, approaching the big rate hike decision, and then Powell's going to determine everything else after that. So make sure you are prepared. To add on to this, we have like AMD, for bullish, you're going to be watching 115 and 118. If for bearish, we're going to be watching 110 and then 108. I do believe the odds favor downside, but always be open-minded because from a technical standpoint, this is looking more bullish. But like I said before, technicals are only part of the equation. What matters more would be Jerome Powell. To add on to this for Coinbase, if Powell pumps us, we're going to be watching this thing break above 110 and make its way up to about 106. If we get a rug pull thanks to Powell, watch this thing come all the way down to 95 and potentially all the way down to 90. For Google, it's up about 6%, which is going to try to help the market for tomorrow. It's going to hold these levels tomorrow if Powell does not give us a rug pull, if he holds the markets up. If he does give us a rug pull, watch this thing come all the way back down to normal levels in the 120s, the very like mid to low 120s. Last but not least, for Amazon, a pump tomorrow will take this thing to 131. A dump will take it all the way down to lower than 125. I would say all the way down to about 123 or lower. And for Meta, it's going to try to likely uptrend tomorrow and try to outperform the markets, I would say, because it's approaching its earnings after the market closes. But just be prepared for some volatility in case Powell says anything. We're currently at around 300 a share. If we're bullish, we could go up to 305. If we're bearish, watch 287.5 or around that area. Now, it all depends on Powell, so there's not a whole lot I could really say, but be well aware of what I just said earlier. And that is, there's going to be some volatility in the morning depending on earnings, sideways price action after that, approaching the rate hike decision. After the decision comes out, expect a surge in volatility, then expect a much bigger move when Powell speaks because who knows what he's going to say. The odds do favor downside based off what Powell has said historically. So maybe Tesla tries to gap up tomorrow, then trade sideways, and eventually we see this thing maybe come down lower. I'm really hoping that does not happen. I don't really know what Powell is going to say, so don't really take my word for it in a way where you just invest. I'm not giving any financial advice. We'll just have to wait and see. And just be prepared for anything. Now, with Tesla, I just want to note that there's a possible head and shoulders developing on it. So there could be more downside coming, but just to be safe, I wouldn't necessarily count on anything just yet. I do want to note that the odds favor downside for tomorrow after Powell speaks, but always be open-minded and watch your levels very carefully. All right, so that's what I have for this video. I want to keep it nice, short, and sweet. Please have a great day. The market to the moon as the long term is still very bright, regardless of what Powell and the Fed do. Thank you and peace out.